There's a bigger conversation than just debt and equity.
It's interesting you're talking about this. Like I said, like a lot of people don't talk about it, right? And the investor came in and said, yes, I'm doing the deal. But because they didn't put into contract when the money comes in, he just didn't pay, and basically waited for them to burn their cash down. All right, everybody, welcome back to Founders Korner. Today's episode, I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Serena, and she is the founder of TRU wellTH. And we are going to be talking about mental health with founders, and we're going to be talking about a little bit about how to engage with investors. She is a huge person involving around investors and founders and the startup community. And one of the things I love talking to her about, you can talk about anything with her, but is her story. So I'm super excited to introduce her to everybody here at the Founders Korner. And Serena, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So we had a couple of bloopers before we started this. So I have to show Serena that I am a professional at this, and I have never done that before. But anyways, Serena, I want to hear your story, because when you talked to me about your story, I'm not going to lie, it was very impactful for me personally. And it's such a true story for most startups and founders. So why don't you start from the beginning? You're from the States. So let's go from New York. Let's go start from there.
Yeah. So I had the number one adventure travel company in New York City. Let's maybe start from there.
Yeah.
I had a SaaS platform that I had built out from scratch. I was in my 20s and I had everything going for me. I was a landlord in New York City. I had, rental properties, and I had over $1 million in income and assets, which my goal was to have that before I was 30. And I did.
Wow. That's incredible, by the way. That is incredible.
Thank you so much. And then, so that was my late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And then by my early 30s, I was broke.
Wow.
Homeless, bedridden. I had all of the top Alzheimer's symptoms. I couldn't remember names, faces. I got lost in my own neighborhood. I had several multiple sclerosis symptoms. There were times where I couldn't walk.
Wow.
And times where I couldn't talk. And nobody could figure out what was going on. It took 8 years for the doctors to figure it out.
Wow. And it's funny because every time I talk about being a founder here on this channel, I specifically tell them how it takes grit. And frankly, you're the icon, the symbol of what grit really is. So that's what really blew me away with you, is like you worked, you hustled. And it's funny, we were having a conversation earlier in the week, and I was telling you about how with founders, we always sacrifice our health. When we're trying to build a startup, it's sacrificing our health. But then 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, the wealth you generated from that startup, you used to pay for the health, right? To come back to center. So, what was going through your mind when you were overcoming all of these things? Like, what was your biggest challenge, and what pushed you to push past that?
When the doctors kept saying you're perfectly healthy, we can't find anything wrong with you, your test results are coming back normal, I knew, like deep down in my core and my soul, that something was very wrong. And I knew something was wrong because I couldn't remember what I just told my staff members, or I would tell them the same things 3 or 4 times. And they're like, Serena, you just told us that. And like, I knew something was very wrong. And so I really had to have faith in the process and just keep looking for the answers, I went to more doctors than I can count.
Yeah.
Until I finally found one that was the right one.
Yeah. And you're talking about states too. So it's not like in Canada where we have free healthcare. You're talking about America, where you have to pay for everything. And you were an entrepreneur, so you were not necessarily under a specific plan.
No.
Wow.
What's really interesting is I learned as I've healed that our health and our wealth are directly correlated. Like our level of health determines our level of wealth. Right. The healthier we are, the more money we can make, because when we're healthy, we have more energy. So we have more time in the day to get things done. We have more brain power, so we make better decisions. So when your health deteriorates, your wealth naturally deteriorates as well. And like for me, I actually paid for a bunch of my healthcare out of pocket because I
Wow.
saw healthcare practitioners that were outside of the healthcare system. So it's
Right.
part of the reason that I went broke, which the number one reason for bankruptcy in the US
Is
is
health.
medical bills.
Yeah.
And the number one reason in Canada is due to being unable to work due to an illness.
Yeah.
So it's actually the same reason.
So it's now where you are today, and that's the reason why you're here today. Hence, true wealth, right? Like that's your philosophy when you're dealing with working with startups. I love how involved you are with the community as well. That's one thing I appreciate about anybody who wants to help founders, because in my mind, the founder community, especially at the startup level, at the beginning level, is lacking. Like there's really the resources are revolving around once you make something of yourself, come talk to us. There's very rare situations where people are trying to guide you without trying to take something from you. So that's what I love about your wellness True Wealth. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how you got involved with that and what you're trying to achieve with it.
Yeah. And thank you for that acknowledgement. I
Yeah.
mean, part of the reason I got into the funding space, which I got into the funding space before I actually got into the health and wellness space. Part of the reason I got involved in that community is because I saw very skewed statistics around women getting funding and only receiving women and minorities, like 5% of the equity funding. And just really feeling frustrated around that. And because I lived in New York City and because of my contacts, I reached out to people and said, why is this happening? What's going on? And what can you tell me? And I started interviewing people and I saw a pattern. And to your point, I started this conversation 10 years ago, took a break from it because I had to take care of my health.
Yep.
And then realized that people still are not having the conversation the way I was having it 10 years ago.
Right.
And really explaining to people, here are all the different types of funding that exist. Here are the pros and cons of each one. And, helping people understand that when you hit certain milestones, like this is what you qualify for as you hit those milestones. So you can create a full-fledged funding plan where that, 6 months from now, you're going to qualify for this type of funding and you're going to plan for it.
Yeah. And so that's interesting you saying that, because I think a lot of startups have this misunderstanding or misconception. I'll call it misconception than misunderstanding of what funding looks like for their startup. And what happens is typically the documentation is very structured in a way. It's like, hit Series A and you got to do this to get Series A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And really what the problem is, a lot of people don't understand what do they need to do to get to that. So they understand where that is, but they lack the understanding of how to get there. Is that fair to say? So from your experience, what have you seen that not only helps, because now you have a course coming up for this exact thing, but give us a little teaser, as they would say, a little teaser for our listeners. What is the structure how should they think about funding? That's a really good question to ask.
That's a great question to ask. And I can give you a quick 3-step process.
Perfect.
The first step is really reframing what funding is and shifting your mindset around funding.
Yes.
Because in the startup world, people tend to talk about angels and VCs and bank loans and, friends and family. And
bank loans are the death of you, in my opinion.
All sorts
That's
of different
a personal opinion.
Well, it depends, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's right. And that's why it's so important to know the pros and cons of each type of funding. That way you can look at it and go, bank loans are out for me.
Yeah.
Angels are out for me.
Yeah.
But this other type of funding might be the right one for me.
And it's all about the relationship too, right? Like you're not just taking money, but you're taking money plus whatever is attached to that money. So, a lot of people call it like, how much is that money worth to you? Right. Mm-hmm. And it could be more costly than like actual income or investment, right?
Well, I have friends that have brought on investors and they went out of business because of their investors, because the investor wasn't getting their money back fast enough and they wanted to yank it out of the company. And
Yeah.
so it's really, really important. That's why it's important to know the pros and cons of each type of funding. It's important to really consider relationships. And there's other types. I talk about 22 different types of funding, 22
Yeah.
different sources,
Yeah.
half of which are free and half of which have a cost associated with them.
Of course.
Yeah, so there's a bigger conversation than just debt and equity.
Yes.
Angels being equity and bank loans being debt. Those are two of the 22
Yeah.
funding sources that I talk
So
about.
it's interesting you're talking about this. Like I said, like a lot of people don't talk about it, right? Usually when you get an angel, when you talk to angels, angels only understand what it is that they do investments on, which is totally fair. And then VCs are on their side, right? They have different calculations, different kind of models. It's interesting you bring on the fact that every kind of money you bring in has an impact on your business in one way. And it's interesting you mentioned your friends, because Travis, what's his last name? I should know this, but the Uber guy,
Mm.
the guy that ran Uber, before Uber, he actually had his own company, and the investor came in and said, yes, I'm doing the deal. But because they didn't put into contract when the money comes in, he just didn't pay, and basically waited for them to burn their cash down. And then when Travis went into trying to raise more money because the guy wasn't giving it, he sued them, because theoretically that's his stake.
He had first dibs.
He has first dibs. So Travis got screwed that way, and he got basically sold for parts is essentially what happened.
Yeah, and these are the kinds of stories that are really important for people to hear, as
Yeah.
many of these kinds of stories as possible, so that when they draw up those contracts, they think of all the potential things that can go wrong. Like, study as many founder stories, both the ones that succeeded and the ones that failed, because it's
Yeah.
just as important to research the ones that have failed to
So
understand what went wrong.
So
Yeah.
there's like three avenues that I always look at. When it comes to startups, the biggest thing, look, they're startups. They've probably talked to, you would probably know this number better, but at least 50 investors or angels or VCs. And it burns so much of their time to do all of that work. It's almost like, you're in a situation where you're sitting there and like you go and like talk to as many girls as you possibly can. And then the first girl that says yes to you, you're just like, oh, thank God. Right? I might not find you attractive or whatever it is. Like maybe you're not, but like you're saying yes because, so it's the same thing when it comes to, I find for startups is they struggle so hard to raise money that when the first person that says, okay, I'll give it to you, they kind of go, oh my God, finally someone believes in me. I am so grateful for you. And they kind of forget about reading the terms and kind of like being a little more patient with it. But then again, they are startups. They need the cash. So how do you suggest someone navigating something like that?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I suggest not looking to angels and VCs first. I suggest looking at
Family and
other
friends.
avenues. Yeah, well, family and friends as investors. However, again, 22 different funding sources. Like,
Yeah.
look at one of those. So one that I can share with you that's free. So we had talked about there's 3 steps, right? So one
Yep.
is reframe, shift your mindset around what funding is. So here's a mindset shift for you. As you put together all of the different resources that you need, like rent and staff and marketing and
Right.
technology and all of those different things, most people look at that and go, I need this much money, this much money, this much money, this much money.
They reverse
right?
calculate it. Yes.
But the mindset shift is, who could I bring on as a strategic partner, let's say? Who
Like
could I
Corridor.
bring on maybe
Shameless plug.
like Corridor?
Yep.
Yeah. Not free, but there's an aspect of that, right, where it's a lesser price because you already have a platform built that they can build their technology on top of. So they're not starting from scratch. They're not
Yeah.
building a brand new platform from scratch. And along those same lines, you can find strategic partners. Like, let's say there's a conference that you want to go to, a trade show you want to go to, and you can't afford the booth. Find
Yep.
somebody who already has the booth
To share.
and become a strategic partner with them. And maybe instead of paying for the other half of the booth, you do some sort of barter or some sort of trade where they benefit from it. Maybe your technology or your, whatever it is that you're creating is something that would be beneficial to them. So they pay full price for the booth because they were going to do that anyway.
Yeah.
And then you bring something else to the table and you guys share the booth.
Yeah, you literally build a partnership program with them. So, like one of the biggest things, and I love that you said partnerships is one of your 22, because my biggest reason why I started Korner, or I always naturally call it Korner 2.0, especially on the podcast, but Korner 1.0, we did family and friends invest raise. We raised 250K, and I don't believe most startups know what they're getting themselves into, including myself. They're getting themselves into when they go into product development, because it's so outside their norm. It's so outside their game. They're industry experts. They're not product experts. And so what happens is they burn through the cash doing that. And that's why, like for me, the biggest reason why I started Korner, I was sick of seeing startups fail, because 60% of startups failed at the product level. So you're telling me 2/3 basically don't even go for launch, right? And so that's always been a frustration of mine. And that's the whole purpose of Korner, because that's what I'm here to do, is help startups not be that 2/3 rule.
Yeah. Strategic partnerships bring so much to the table, including what you were just talking about, knowledge and experience. The first time you do something, you could be an entrepreneur for 20 years, but when you go into a new industry, you're starting over.
Yes.
You may think but you get in there and now maybe you're in the clothing industry or you're in the food industry or you're in the software industry or whatever it is, whereas you're in a different industry before. Each industry comes with its own challenges. Each industry comes with its own, like little tweaks and little secrets and little insider things that will help you to succeed or not if you don't know them. So mentorship, which is actually the third thing on my list. First one is change your mindset around funding. Second one is think outside of the box. So think of the strategic partners outside of the box that you could potentially partner with. And then the third one is mentorship.
So it's funny you say mentorship. So earlier in my podcast, I think it was like 2 or 3 episodes ago, I was telling to everybody how I was scared to approach for mentorship. So you'll laugh about this. So I've always presented myself as like, I don't know how do you ask someone to be a mentor? So in this channel, I specifically said, all right, guys, I promise you guys, I'm going to go out and get myself a mentor. And proudly, I want to say that I have found a mentor. It's actually a gentleman that I did a podcast earlier with. I think it was late last year, but his name is Roderick Jefferson. Amazing guy. Wrote the book on sales enablement. He's just such a pleasant person to speak to. He's a professional speaker. So, he knows he has the perfect tone of voice where you're like, I'm inspired and I don't even know what you're saying. Right. So he's an amazing guy. Him and I are very aligned. So I think with mentorship, what is your biggest advice when startups are going and approaching mentors? And I've had this conversation before with other people. My biggest thing was you have to find someone that you can say, I want to learn from you. Because it's hard to find a mentor that you're like, I'm just doing a strategic mentorship. Like with Roderick, like I see, like I can learn a lot from him, right? So how do you approach that, and how do you kind of take that into consideration when you're looking at funding specifically? Because I'm assuming you have a mindset of that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And there are 2 different types of mentors. Yeah. There are the ones that you pay and the ones that you don't pay. And you approach them very differently. Yeah. So let's say you find a mentor who is phenomenal, wants to charge you a fee, you can't afford him or her.
Especially at a startup level, that's most.
Especially at a startup level, consider putting them on your board and giving them some shares.
Is that scary to do though? Especially a board? Because usually
you definitely want to vet. You always want to vet people and get to know them. But that's like one way of doing it. Or you just pay their fee, and then you don't have any. They're not in bed with you, right?
I'm always
got your own. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always hesitant on board seating people, because
and understand why.
they do get a lot of power. That's one. So I always tell startups, I'm like, be very, very cautious. Don't nilly yell, just like throw
Yes.
board seats out people, because a lot of people get ousted that way. And you do lose a significant amount of control. What I've kind of been doing more is like an advisory board.
Yeah, well, if it's yeah, exactly. You could put them on the advisory board.
Yeah.
We're doing different levels here. So like one
Yes.
level is board seat shares, right? Another
Yeah.
level is advisory board, right? Another level is they're just somebody that helps you for free,
Yeah.
right? One of the ways to approach someone to support you for free is, first of all, research who they are and find out what they like, what they're passionate about,
Ooh, I like that.
any charities that they might be involved in. And then you can reach out to them and say, hey, I really love XYZ about you. I'm really inspired by the fact that you've done da 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 da. And I see that you're involved with this charity. I would love to be mentored by you. How can I support you?
Right.
What's something that I could do in return for you mentoring me? And
I
maybe
love
they
that.
say, volunteer at this charity once a month. Or
Yeah.
maybe they say, go to the soup kitchen. Or maybe they say, help these little leaguers out. Or maybe they say, whatever it is.
It's not always monetary.
Yes, when you come from a place of giving first, and the fact that you did the
Yes.
research on the person to find out who they are and how you can support them, and if you really can't get their attention, you could try to send them a gift basket with their favorite things in it.
Yeah.
There's lots of different ways you can get someone's attention, but that goes back to step number 2, think outside of the box. Like, what can you do that's different?
You said it word for word from the same episode, like last episode. It's literally bring something to the table, because I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is like, even with the way I approach Roderick is I can be of your service. I can help increase because he's a consultant, right? So I can come in as a supporting factor for your consultancy. So yeah, you're 100% right. You do have to go in with a mindset of, okay, what can I give, whether it be monetary or it be service based. But I think most mentors, they're all about the service side, to be frank. I don't think they're not in a situation where they need the money. So, and your money is not really like that impactful to their bottom line. So to them, it's more about, how can you help me so that I can help you?
Exactly. That's an unpaid mentor. And then there's, like I said, there's the paid mentors or the paid
Of course.
coaches.
Yeah.
And those are people who do it for a living, and they bring something to the table as well. So both have value. And at the end of the day, what's really important is your own value and what you can bring to the table. And, the biggest, just real quick, the biggest thing that I've noticed about founders, especially in the beginning, is they feel like they don't maybe have something to bring to the table.
Yes.
And just know
that was me.
By researching the other person, it's a relationship, like a dating relationship, a business partnership, any other relationship. Get to know the other person before you ask them for something, and offer them something before you ask them for something. And the results will be probably better than you expect.
That's actually amazing, because that was exactly me. I literally said it. I said, I don't know how to approach them, because I, like most most entrepreneurs, they kind of look at themselves like, what do I got to offer him? You know what I mean? Like, I need help from him, not the other way around. I love that you said that. Another thing.
And from a mentor, quick, from a mentor standpoint, something that's really important for you to remember is, there's a benefit to the mentor in helping you and watching you succeed. Like, they get something out of seeing you make sure you take action.
Yes.
And get results.
Not the ones that
when they see you take action,
yeah,
it shows you respect them.
Yeah.
And when they see you get results, they feel proud, like a parent might feel. Like, it's a very real give and take for them. Like I said, in the beginning, you need to approach it where you're giving first and then asking. But as it goes on, it becomes reciprocal, and just seeing you succeed can be enough to be an exchange for them.
And you were mentioning another big thing that I always tell people in the startup world is, you got to network. So, I mean, mentorship is a type of networking, but you were mentioning you were at an event in Vancouver, and you literally said, okay, guys, like you need to network. You need to like go out and talk to people and just go for drinks. Because I agree with you. A lot of people are just willing to go for drinks after an event. But you were speaking. You were one of the speakers, and you actually said that, and no one did it afterwards. So why do you think that founders hesitate to do such a thing? Like, is it just like you think it's just their own personal like just fear, or?
Well, and it's interesting because you and I had talked about that in the context of it being cultural.
Yeah.
Like in New York City, where I lived for 15 years, it was normal after an event to go out for drinks. Speakers would get together and go out for drinks. The people would get together and go out for drinks or dinner or whatever. And literally, my friend told me, he was hosting the event. He goes, because I was like, what about drinks afterwards? And blah, blah. He's like, no, we don't really do that here. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, and Canadians are afraid.
Yeah, I was like, that's where the money's made. That's where the relationships are built. And that's where, when someone invests in you, whether they're investing time or money, a majority of the time they do it because they like you.
Yeah, I agree. I always say that.
Yeah, they're rarely going to give you money if they don't like you, even if you have the next $1 billion deal. They're like, I don't want to deal with you. I can go find another $1 billion deal,
And vice versa.
Relationships. Yes, and very important. Pay attention to whether you get along with them as well. Yeah, definitely networking. When you're at live events, go up to the speakers and say, hey, what are you guys doing after this?
Yeah.
Do you want to go for a drink? Or, hey, do you guys want to go for dinner? Or what's the plan? Like, be the person.
I have always said Americans are actually quite nice. A lot of people kind of like, but that being said, Americans are quite straightforward, right? If they don't like you, they'll say they don't like you. If they like you, they like you. A lot of times in my experience, they do like you. Like they're never rude to you and like that. And with Canadians, they're a little more conservative about their feelings, and they're very nice. But they may be thinking something else in their back of their mind. So I think that's the fear I think that's where the cultural difference is like Americans are very like, let's go. Like I want to see where we can make a deal happen. Whereas Canadians are like, yeah, do you want to just let me know in 2 weeks what's going on? What's your thought process? Right. And you've experienced both sides. Do you agree with that? Because I always tell startups, like, if you're doing a serious raise, not seed is tough, like pre-seed is tough, but like if you're going for like Series A, like there's just more deal flow that happens in the States than it happens in Canada. So like really approaching Canadian investors is tough. It's just tough because they just evaluate you, in my opinion, incorrectly. They always look for that Series A valuation, or sorry, they look at the Series A performance, but they value you at like seed. So they want bigger pieces with the performance. So what are your thoughts? Because you've been in both sides.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if someone likes you, they might just bend the rules.
Yeah,
I've seen that happen so many times. So many times. I've seen friends get deals. I've seen, friends invest in deals that I was like, are you sure? And they're like, I feel good about this person. Yeah. I think that they're gonna do it. Or I really feel good about this project. It's saving X or helping X, or it's going to make X better, or, whatever it is. So it's harder, like you go to a pitch competition.
Yeah.
You're just a person and they're a panelist and you're pitching to them. You go for drinks with them afterwards. Now you might become friends. Next time you're up there pitching, they will 100% see you differently. You won't just be some person up there pitching, and they're going to give you extra pointers and extra support and extra tips, and they're going to mentor you a little here and there. So it is all about the relationships. And I know everybody in the industry I talk to says the same thing. So if you're not the person who's initiating the relationship, then you're leaving money on the table.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think with investing specifically, I always say there's 4 fundamentals. And when it comes to investors, one is timing for the product, right? They'll always look at the timing. If you're too early, they might be scared. If you're too late, they might be scared. If you're in that middle, okay, cool. Timing is checked. The second thing is the team, the person. So I always tell people when you're on a pitch, you're not pitching the product per se. You're pitching why you're the person to run this product. Why are you the person I should basically trust in order for this to be, for this to come to fruition?
Yeah, you're the jockey that's going to get the racehorse across the line first.
Yeah.
There's lots of horses out there.
There's lots of horses, not enough jockeys. Exactly.
You're the jockey that's going to get that racehorse there first. That's why competition doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
That's why when you put your
I
pitch
agree
deck
with that.
together, put your competitors in there, because nobody really cares about your competitors.
No.
They care that you can beat them. They care that you
Exactly.
can make as much money at least, and that you can continue the growth trajectory.
And the fact is, the fact is that if there's competitors, that means there's a market. So it's not a bad thing. And I wrote a blog about this on LinkedIn. Is you don't have to be number one anymore in the software space to be $1 billion company. You just have to be the top. You just have to be one of the top. There's so many people have transitioned to software now that the industry has become a behemoth. So you being number one is not necessarily the goal anymore. You don't have to be the first. You just have to be fifth, sixth, and you'll still be worth billions.
And back to our first conversation, you have to have the mental and physical health and stamina to be able to keep it up.
Yes. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes. So that you are actually able to get that horse over the line and then run 100 more races.
Yes.
Because just because you got it across the line the first time doesn't mean the race is over. It doesn't mean you're done and you cash in. Some people, that might be their exit strategy, but over the long term, the goal is growth.
Right? I agree with that. So I actually love that you brought that full circle in that aspect. What would you suggest? Like I always say, like you have to really be focused. Like I have like you got to be productive. You have to be organized. You have to set rules for yourself to not burn out, because one of the biggest things right now is burnout. Burnout being like you're just mentally exhausted from everything that's being thrown at you. So, what would you suggest? Because you went through this, you went through the struggles, like where like life is just constantly punching you and you feel like, how the hell am I going to get out of this punch? Right? What are some of the tips, if you have any, what are some tips that you can tell founders on this channel, for example, like this is how you can see yourself in a more long-term by doing these things, making sure you do these things, especially on a wellness level?
Yeah. Put in your budget, mental and physical health things. Put in your time budget. Put in your schedule on your calendar.
Yeah.
Meditation, going for a walk outside, swimming in the ocean, whatever it is for you, riding your bike, playing tennis. Make sure that you're scheduling time for it and make sure you're putting money in your budget. Maybe it's going to the spa. Maybe it's taking a vacation. Maybe it's doing a staycation in a nice hotel. Like make sure that you're budgeting both financially and time-wise for your health, because if you don't, it will be very challenging. Don't find out the hard way like I did, because I was working 7 days a week, 17 hours a day.
Yep.
For months. And that wasn't all of it. I had multiple infections and multiple toxicities and a double gene mutation that reduces my body's ability to detox. Like I had a whole lot of things going on.
Yeah.
And then I had stress on top of it.
Yeah.
So, it's really important to, on the health and wellness side, I have an assessment process that's really comprehensive that assesses mind, body, nutrition, and environment. Right. And people can look at that and see where they're at, because you may just be one illness triggering event away from having your health fall apart, which is what happened for me.
So where do they go to take that assessment? That's an awesome tool. So I really do want to make sure our guys know. It's
actually a full program because it's very in depth. But when they go to TRU wellTH, which is TRU wellTH.com, the main page has the option of health or wealth. And so you can take a look at either one of those two pages. You'll find information on both. But yeah, it's really important to know, it's the same thing with business, and it's the same thing with like health, wealth, business. It's all one thing. You have to assess where you're at financially. You have to assess where you're at health-wise to know where you go from there. And sometimes, like if we don't have the awareness, we could be so close to that tipping point of going the other direction, like the wrong direction.
Yes, I agree with that. Especially when it comes to like you, because as a startup, you have so many things you have to think about. You have so many things you got to put time and effort in. Funding being one of them, product being one of them, selling being one of them. Like there's like 1,000 balls you got to juggle. And I love the fact that you said, because I actually made a video about this, and we'll put it in the link for everybody else if you've missed it. But I specifically talk about you have to find your thing. Because I'm really like, I hate when I hear like, the whole like 5 a.m. club thing. And like, I hear people who are like trying to do the 5 a.m. club. And I'm like, dude, you're a night person. You work better at nighttime and you're getting 5 hours of sleep. You're killing yourself because you're trying to fit into this like little puzzle that you don't fit. So I love that you said you have to find your thing. You have to find what works for you to be able to decompress and be able to come together and really just like give that mental break for yourself. Because like for me, like meditation works, but that's not for everybody. A lot of people laugh at you when you say meditation because they're like, oh God, you're Buddha now, right? So, but it works for some people. It works for a lot of people, but it doesn't mean it works for you. So I love that you said that.
Yeah, in the 5 a.m. club, it's funny. I just heard a neuroscientist talking about this. It's actually really more the 7 a.m. club. I think the 5 a.m. club became
I'm a 7 a.m.
kind of an inside, an inside
I like
joke
that
thing.
club.
Because like midnight to 7 is a really good time frame, or 11 to 6 or 10 to 5. 7 to 9 hours of sleep is what we really need. Nobody can outrun that. Even if you feel like, oh, I only need 3 to 4 hours of sleep, because I have friends like that.
Not in 6 years.
You are burning your DNA wicks at both ends, like both of them. You're just burning them. And you will, research Elizabeth Blackburn, telomeres and telomerase, and then research meditation in conjunction with that. And that'll help you understand how you're burning your DNA.
I love it. Serena, you're amazing. I love having conversation with you. Like we're at 40 minutes. I know we're going to wrap it up now, but I would love to have you back on the podcast. It's just with you, it's like easy conversation about everything. So that we were warned about prior to even doing this podcast. So thank you so much for being here. Now, I do want to make sure everyone knows, right? TRU Wealth is what Serena is doing with the mental health stuff, and like kind of just getting you prepped for being a startup. And then on the other side, she has the 22 program where she figures out, like you can figure out how you can get funding for your startup. How do people get to that? I think you mentioned you have a URL that you're going to be setting up for this.
Yeah, so I'm going to set up a special link for your viewers and listeners.
Amazing. They love special stuff.
Yeah, always good to give out something special. So TRU Wealth, TRUwellTH.com/founder.
Awesome.
And yeah, right now it'll go to an event that I'm doing on March 15th.
Right.
But if you're listening to this after that, I have another idea of something that you can get your hands on. So
for a wait list.
Yeah. Yes. So definitely go sign up there, and I'll keep on that.
And the event is in person, online,
online
city. Okay. Online. Perfect. Okay, good. And they can find everything there.
They can find everything. Okay. At TRUwellth.com/founder.
Amazing. For everybody that's listening, Serena is amazing. Like if you can attend that course, I highly recommend it. I myself will definitely be attending that just to check it out, because she has nothing but gold to say, honestly. So Serena, thank you so much for being on this podcast with us. I know my listeners are going to walk away with a ton of information and facts. So thank you for doing that with us. But please come back.
Welcome.
Please come back.
You're so welcome. And I so appreciate you. Every time we have a conversation, it's always so incredible. And so, I would absolutely love to come back.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And to all of my founders, I hope you're doing well. If you guys have any comments or have any thoughts, or you want to talk to Serena, please leave it in the notes or comments down below. Serena, do you want anyone to reach out with you, or do you want them just to find you on LinkedIn or something?
Yeah, you can definitely find me on LinkedIn under Serena Walker.
Okay.
And I think we're going to put a couple links in there for people to
Yes,
find, like Facebook and community and all that
that's
kind of
right.
stuff. So yeah,
Awesome.
look forward
All
to it.
right. Thank you so much. And guys, thank you for listening. Until next time, quarter out.